Last night, how was the after party?
Applause.
Well, I went to bed at 10. Anyway, let's start getting into the question, getting into the topic straight. You guys are both from big agencies and spent a considerable amount of time at Starcom Media Vest for you and JWT for you. What brought you where you are today?
Well, I would say ladies first, but I'll start. I think it's a very common thing for talent to go from small to big and big to small. I felt that I needed to get back to actually working on clients rather than managing finance reports and managing up and managing people, managing problems. That's not to say that I don't do any of that in the agency that I'm at now, but it's like moving from a A380 to a sort of open top small aircraft. You just feel everything a lot more. You're a lot closer to everything, and it was the experience that I needed.
I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and working at a large agency, while the foundation was great and the resources were wonderful, I did want to get back to working directly with the clients and making a change and wanting to not always drink the Kool-Aid and not wanting to do what I was being told what to do based on somebody over in another country. And I just wanted to, again, work on those relationships with clients.
So, some of the advantages that people bring up when they talk about working at smaller agencies is that they're more fast, they're more nimble, it's more hands-on, it's more collaborative. Which of these things do you agree with, and what was the biggest advantage when you moved to a smaller agency?
You to go.
Okay. No is never in our vocabulary. That's a mantra of mine at the agency. When somebody says, no, you guys can't do it, it's like that actually motivates me more to get it done. And our clients really enjoy our being able to be responsive and not take 3 or 4 days because we have to call another department or it's not in the P&L. So being agile and fast is great for our team, but it also scares the shit out of my team. It really does. When I was hearing the millennials saying the other day that they wish they knew more of what was happening at the agency, my team's like, you know what, we don't want to hear, we just want to focus on our job because all that stuff scares us. So there's a balance to be had, but there are pros and cons.
Yeah, I think that getting 10,000 people, which was what JWT was globally when I was there, to row in the same direction is a really, really challenging task. And if you want to actually change the direction, somebody used a metaphor earlier on of an oil tanker, it takes quite some time to make a change. In a small agency, you can make something happen in a very, very short space of time. And clients are demanding that now. And clients are also demanding, I think, that teams are leaner and smaller. And everybody talks about agile, but actually clients now want us to work in an agile way. And that tends to favor smaller, more collaborative environments.
Brian Weiner, mentioned this on the first day that for all the restructuring and organization that agencies want to work on, at times clients are still not at that level, so they're forced to mirror those silos again, which I'm guessing is not an issue for you guys.
No, we're a smaller team. But we're quite mighty, and I don't like the silos. I didn't like working the silos when I was at a large agency too, because I wanted to grasp the full picture. I wanted to know what we were doing, how it impacted another team, and so my team overall, they're not just media folks. They're research. They're doing production, UX, and also media planning and buying. So silos is we break it down, and that's what our clients enjoy too, because they know that we understand the full spectrum.
I think most agencies that grew up from a digital point of view, it was very difficult to put people into the same sorts of silos that there existed in traditional agencies. And typically you get hybrids at digital agencies. They're part strategist, part account person, part UX, part technologist. So that tends to mean that there's a more fluid feel to the way the organization works. In the more traditional agencies, I think that you join as an account person, you stay as an account person, or whatever the discipline might be. And it's typically more challenging to get those agencies to actually change. That's not to say that they haven't or can't do it, but it's more challenging.
So is that something that attracts talent then? Because, if we know one thing about millennials, it's that they really want to be invested in what they're doing. So the fact that they, get to don these multiple hats and roles,
Yep.
Is that what attracts them to places like yours?
I mean, I'll give you a sort of focus group of one. My daughter works as a digital strategist at a big WPP media agency. And I won't name it because I think they might be here today. But she wants to go somewhere smaller where she's going to get more exposure to clients. So I think there's this balance of you can learn, there's lots of people to learn from at big agencies. But often really, really talented people don't want to be buried in a big agency. They want to either start something themselves or they want to join somewhere where they're going to get more exposure and more responsibility earlier. So in that way, we cater for probably the millennial mindset as well.
I would say one of our selling points is when the coordinators even start, they start establishing relationships with the clients. I fully believe in that. But the challenge, like your daughter is saying that because we are smaller, you also have to be resourceful to find the answer. You don't have a full training. And so that's where I'm saying the balance, there are pros and cons. Like the larger agencies, you get the formal training and structure, but you may not have the client exposure. At a smaller agency, you are establishing that client relationship, you're resourceful, you're finding the answer. But that scares millennials too. So it's people want something, but then they don't realize they have to actually put some grit towards it.
So how do you then compete with the large networks, the big WPPs of the world? How do you, get business? How do you pitch to clients? What's your USP?
I think that there are some things that haven't changed, and that is that typically a great idea is a great idea, regardless of what sort of agency it comes from. And I think every type of agency now is trying to pitch small as possible, big as necessary. And whether they can actually pull that off or not is another thing. But I sort of feel that, we pitch against the big agencies, and ultimately, sometimes we don't get through because we're not big enough, and a client might not feel that we have the stability, or we're 120 people or something like that. Other times it's because we've had a great idea and the client believes in us as a team and wants to buy that.
Yeah, the perception and reality is so frustrating when clients or brands think, oh, you're so small, you can't handle it.
Yeah.
But you have very talented folks, as do we, and we have very senior folks that are touching every aspect of the business. Don't you think a brand would want that more versus not knowing who's working on their business? And so again, relationships are key for smaller agencies.
You have a term for that, right? Do you want to talk more about that?
I can't remember what it was.
Frienders?
Oh, frienders, yes,
Yeah.
frienders. We have our vendors that we work with, and we have our frienders, and our frienders definitely have our back. They're the ones that are helping us to propel forward. They're the ones that are saying, you know what, we know that these are limitations for you, but we are going to help you out because we want to see you succeed for your clients. When your clients do well, we as a friender works out well too. So as I've been very fortunate over the past 10.5 years, 99% of our new business has come from a referral from a friender or a client.
Is that true for you as well?
Very much so, yeah. It's either clients that have moved from one brand to another or a different company altogether and have referred us in. And I think that just tends to be a more intimate type of relationship that you build when you're a small agency. I think there's several other factors coming into this as well. We're moving from a retainer-based agency of record world to a project-based, everything's a jump ball, there is no lead agency type of world. That levels the playing field somewhat.
And that's advantageous to smaller agencies.
Yeah,
right?
I think it makes it sort of just more equitable for any agency now, because typically it was the big agencies that were able to pile loads of people in at the pitch time, and you wouldn't see those people again. They'd be the more experienced people, and you get the B or C team working in your business. And in a small agency, you can't get away with that. Mm-hmm. So, and typically you have more senior people working on the business in a small agency because they have to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And getting to the topic, which is how to be small but act big. What would be your advice to bigger folks trying to pick up on this, being nimble, being agile, being fast?
Don't ask for permission. Don't ask for permission. Have the confidence, have the grit. Don't say, well, or don't make excuses. Don't say, I'm so sorry, we're smaller, but it's, have the confidence. We're as strong as our weakest link, so we have to make sure that we have the right team doing kick-ass work and having that confidence out there and making sure that we have the strong friender relationships too to make sure that we're able to deliver on what we say we can do.
I agree with that. I think if you look across the gamut of work that's coming out of all of the agencies, if you look at the really, really sort of world-class sort of defining the category type of work, it tends to come from smaller, more boutique type agencies. And that's not a coincidence. Ultimately, I think that's where the talent gravitates towards. So I think that, advice for big agencies is exactly as you were saying, but also, be real about what it's going to take to actually solve a problem. A lot of times big agencies come in and think that they can just essentially have enough people in the room that they'll muscle their way into something. And it used to be like that, but I don't think it's like that anymore.
Apart from your own agencies, which small agencies do you think are really standing out, and what can the bigger folks learn from them as well? Examples will be great.
Okay. In the UK, there's a really interesting agency called Friday. Nobody here will probably heard of it, but if you go and look them up, we are Friday.com. They are very much into experience design and service design, like us. I think Work & Co. I think there's probably people here from Work & Co. I think they're a very interesting model. And that model really of inverting the pyramid, having more senior people and potentially less junior people because clients want to work with people that have got experience, I think that's a real winner. And I don't think big agencies can do that. They simply can't widen the top of their structure that way.
What's challenging is seeing some great work that's come out of smaller agencies. What happens is then they get an anchor client, and then all of a sudden they're, the culture, I know that we don't like to use the word culture, but the persona of that agency then starts to translate into a larger agency, and then they've lost that boutique-ness. So I would say what freelancers have been doing on a creative basis is some kick-ass stuff, again, because they're not worried about a certain margin. They are doing it because they are so passionate about the work.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun to see. That's what invigorates us, too.
How do you resist that? How do you resist kind of, embodying the persona of one of your biggest clients when you're that small?
I would say, as I've been building the company, I didn't want to have one anchor client because that's the scariest thing to do. You have one anchor client and then, oh shit, they go away. And then how are you going to pay the bills? So what we do is we diversify as much as possible. We take on smaller projects so we can continue to educate the team and ourselves, and that allows us and affords us opportunity to work on other projects too.
The projects that you might not be as passionate about?
Yeah, because I think that when you are working on things that you may not be as passionate about, you're going to find opportunities to find your passion projects to balance things out. It's all about balance and moderation.
It's all about running a business as well. So you can be idealistic and say, well, I'm never going to do this for these sorts of clients. But when you've got a payroll, you end up having to do work that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily have chosen, but that's just the way the business works.
So to wrap things off, what is, according to you, the best thing about working at a small agency?
I think the speed at which things happen, I guess I'm trying not to use the word culture, but the passion of a small group of people working towards an end is, I think, difficult to beat, difficult to replicate in a huge agency. So it's a lot more to do with the feeling things that happen every day.
Yeah, the energy, the family aspect, that I know that I am taking care of people because they are also taking care of our clients. So it's almost like the army. You're all doing it together for a common cause.
Just not in uniform.
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to audience questions. If anyone has any, we have about 2 minutes. Anyone? Okay, I'll ask you another question. So you mentioned the advantages. What is the most frustrating part, or the thing that keeps you up at night sometimes?
It's probably the reciprocal of the advantages. Sometimes being small, you have to worry about things like payroll, and you end up focusing on, it becomes too much like a business. And that can be a disadvantage. I also think that there are clients that aren't thinking, that the CMO or whoever it might be at the client side wants to hire an agency that they've heard of, that their boss has heard of, because they don't want to get into trouble if things go wrong. So there can often be this confidence factor, but that just requires a brave client.
And I would say from the media side, not being paid enough attention to from the press. talk about programmatic, transparency. All of a sudden, these are big issues. We've been saying that for the past 10 years. That's why our clients enjoy working with us, because I will tell them this is not smart for you guys, or you're going to see the numbers that we're signing on contracts. We are not marking it up. It's a straight pass-through. And so that's very frustrating for me. It's like, I've been saying this for years, and because we're not a well-known agency and we're not at the ANA, we're not being heard. And that's very frustrating, because that's what we've been trying to build our relationships on for the past decade.
Also, there's no right or wrong here. Clients are going to go to big agencies because they need global coverage and they work in so many markets. And clients are going to want to use small agencies because they want more a dedicated team. They want to meet the people they're going to be working with at the pitch and be with them all the time. So there's enough for everybody. Plus, it's the way the industry has worked, in a sense that people within an agency feel that they can't do what they've got a better idea for how to run that agency. So they can't do it within that agency, and they'll do it themselves. And that's been the way the industry has worked since its inception.
And clients are with you in your offices, working together constantly, right?
Yeah, we have several clients that we work with in an agile process, and that involves small teams. It's all very lean, and the client is actually in with us every day as part of the team. But not every client wants to or can work like that.
All right, so just to wrap it up again, 3 takeaways. How do you be small but act big? Your top 3 points.
You didn't tell me you were going to ask me that. I guess one is forget about, when you're in the room with the client, forget about how big your agency is or how small it is, because ultimately it's about producing that idea or that sort of creative in the room and persuading. It's still all about persuading clients that this work will work or this idea will become something that can be made. And I don't think that has anything to do with size or anything like that. So really it's about confidence, about forgetting how big you are, and also being passionate and knowing that the decisions that you make are going to have an impact on your agency.
I would say don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, the passion, the confidence. Make sure that you're still loving the work that you're doing. Otherwise it does just turn into P&L. And that's not fun. That's not fun, because then the team starts to take on that attitude, and that's not good for anybody. And I thought of one more, but then I forgot it.
That's okay.
So I got 2.5.
Anyone else? Questions?
Oh, I know what it was.
Oh.
Be resilient. I would say, as small business owners, there are many peaks and valleys, and you can get very depressed very easily. But know that the tide always comes back in.
All right. That's a great point to end at. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.